We're back, baby. Welcome to another episode of the Boom Breakdown. Obviously, some craziness going on with TJ Dillishaw failing his in competition test with USADA for his last fight against Henry Cejudo. And now he's relinquished the bantamweight title. We no longer have a bantamweight champion. And what's to happen? You know, we have Marlon Moraes, who's obviously deserved his shot now. He's earned it. We have Aljamain Sterling. We have Pedro Munoz. We have Henry Cejudo. It's all up for grabs now. We'll see what's going to happen, who they're going to match up. To me, I have a couple options that I think would be cool to see. I think that obviously the UFC and the way the business is moving, they'll most likely look to make Henry Cejudo versus Marlon Moraes. And if they don't do that, it would be cool to see Aljamain Sterling get a rematch with Moraes and see that for the title. Or Pedro Munoz come up because of who he just finished, Cody Garbrandt, a former world champion. You know, we'll see if he gets his shot against Moraes. Man, crazy to see this happen. Who knows? We don't know what he failed for yet. You know, could be a diuretic. That's my, assumption, only based off of his last weight cut. It seems like that's a possibility. Other than that, you really just don't know. He's already been suspended a year from New York State Athletic Commission, who's a really strict commission. And, we haven't heard anything much from USADA yet and what's going to happen on that end. But we'll see what they're going to do with the division, man. I mean, this might be good for the flyweights. We'll see, because Formiga's fighting Davison Figueiredo coming up this weekend. And maybe the winner of that gets pushed ahead. We got Joey Benavidez, and maybe they make the rematch with him and Henry Cejudo, and then they have Marlon fight whoever else in the bantamweight division for the title there. And then when TJ comes back, they'll deal with it. But my thing is, TJ just lost to Henry Cejudo, and I feel like the UFC is going to look at it like, well, let's have Cejudo come up. Maybe they just completely cancel out the flyweights, which would suck. I don't really want to see that, but that's possible. And they'll have Cejudo fight Moraes, and then in the meantime, Dillashaw serves his time, comes back, fights the winner of that. That kind of keeps a lot of the contenders in the bantamweight division on hold, which really sucks for them. But maybe they'll do Munoz versus Sterling in the meantime, and then have Cejudo versus Moraes. That might be the direction that they go. We'll see what happens. But other than that, that's craziness. We got UFC Nashville coming up, and the main event is Wonderboy Thompson versus Anthony Pettis. Pettis coming up from 155 to 170. He's obviously going to be the smaller guy, that's for sure. And he has the skill set. He definitely has the high level striking to compete with Wonderboy Thompson, but I just don't see it happening. I mean, Wonderboy Thompson's competed with the best of the best in a welterweight division. He's gonna have a size advantage. He's gonna have a power advantage, and the way that he fights, he's able to really be elusive and not take damage and inflict his own damage. And I think with Pettis, the last guy he fought, Ferguson, he took a lot of damage in that fight. And Ferguson is not obviously the most technical striker. He's really funky and unpredictable, but he was able to touch Pettis many, many times, and I find Wonderboy Thompson to be a much more accurate striker, a much more high-level technical striker. So I just don't see this ending well for Pettis. I feel like Wonderboy Thompson's going to come away with like a TKO victory. And, Pettis might get a couple fancy things off. He might look good in the early goings in the fight. But I think after Thompson gets his rhythm down, he's going to pick him apart. Thompson's obviously not an easy guy to take down, and I just don't, Pettis is really, really good at jiu-jitsu. He's got good submissions off his back, but I really just don't see this fight ending up on the ground at any time. So I'm going with Wonderboy Thompson. I would say second or third round TKO by strikes. We got Curtis Blades versus Justin Willis. Big Pretty, Curtis Blades, obviously really high level wrestling, coming off a loss. Justin Willis coming off that win against Mark Hunt, which wasn't the most impressive performance, but he was able to shut down Mark Hunt, which is impressive in its own right. Just wasn't the most exciting fight. And, he's got very powerful, very fast striking for his build, and he's, surprises guys with his speed. So, Curtis Blades has to watch out for that striking. And I think he obviously, we all know he wants to get the fight to the ground. And if he does, I think he has the cardio advantage. I think he's going to be able to push the pace a little bit in the grappling realm. And I think obviously he's going to be looking for that takedown early against Justin Willis. But Justin Willis has that fast twitch response. And I don't think he's going to be an easy guy to take down. So that's really going to be the key to this fight. We'll see if Blades can get the fight down. If he can get the fight to the ground, I think he'll be able to finish it via either ground and pound or submission. But that's going to be a tough task. Ultimately, I see Blades getting the job done. Whether he can find that finish or not on the ground, I do think he's going to be able to land a couple takedowns. I think he'll get Justin Willis tired, and I think that he'll be able to get the victory. I'm going to go with Curtis Blades by decision. We got John McDessie versus Jesus Pinedo. I think this is a newcomer coming in to fill in. Somebody pulled out of the fight against McDessie. I forget who it was. But McDessie looked impressive his last fight, and he's always got that dangerous striking. I think it's a karate-style background or something like that. Either that or Taekwondo. I don't know what it is, but the guy's got very, very aggressive strikes. He likes to throw some spinning techniques, and he's very powerful and fast on the feet, hard to take down, and I could see him coming away with a victory as well. Probably on the feet, he'll finish the fight TKO. I'll say first or second round. Big fight in the flyweight division. Jussier Formiga, Davison Figueroa. Davison Figueroa, a big flyweight. He's showing some big power in the division. Who knows what's going to happen with this fight? Maybe the winner moves up to bantamweight and they just kind of filter off the rest of the guys that are losers at flyweight. Seems like they're just waiting for guys to fight out their contracts, and then they're going to make moves after that and go from there. So the winner of this fight really sets themselves up for a big fight next, whether they keep the flyweights or not, or just keeps their stay in the UFC. Davison Figueroa is coming off a couple big wins. Jussier Formiga's coming off a big win himself, a finish by rear naked choke. And this fight's very evenly matched. It's hard to pick this fight because obviously Formiga's got the more finishing abilities on the ground. Davison Figueroa, I would say, has more power, a little bit more aggressive, and seems to have a little bit more strength for the flyweight division. But will that strength come into play? Will he even enter into the grappling realm with Formiga? I don't know. I think he'll probably want to keep the fight standing, which Formiga has shown a lot of improvements in his striking, and he's not afraid to get aggressive in there too. So I could see Formiga coming out with a submission win. They're both pretty good on the ground, but Formiga's just a little bit higher level up, I feel. And I'm going to go with Formiga by second round submission. Luis Pena versus Steven Peterson. I believe both of these guys are tough fighters from the Ultimate Fighter. Luis Pena is training with AKA, seems to be making good improvements, but I think he lost his last fight. I think he's pretty pissed off at his performance. We got espresso, baby. He's fighting Steven Peterson, evenly matched. Steven Peterson is a guy who's willing to get in there and exchange. I think Luis Pena is going to have a little bit of a reach advantage. Southpaw against orthodox stance. Pena is probably going to have a little bit better wrestling. Probably just better, well-rounded game altogether. And I'm going to go with Pena by decision. Going down the rest of the card, I'm just going to make some quick picks, touch on a couple other fights, get to a couple fan questions, and we'll go from there. J.J. Aldrich versus Macy Barber. Macy Barber's got a lot of hype behind her. She seems to be an up-and-coming star. I'm going to go with Macy Barber by TKO. Bryce Mitchell versus Bobby Moffitt. I'm going to go with Bryce Mitchell by decision. Frankie Saenz versus Marlon Vera. This is a big fight in the bantamweight division. Marlon Vera looked good his last time out. I think he had to cancel his last fight very short notice, last minute, because something with the weight cut. He had some illness or something like that. When he's fighting Frankie Saenz is an older veteran who has a grind style. He's a very good wrestler. But Marlon Vera is going to have the reach advantage, the striking advantage. I think he's going to be hard to take down. And I think if it does hit the mats, he's got very, very precise jiu-jitsu. And he'll be looking for a submission. So I see Marlon Vera taking this fight probably by decision. Outpointing Saenz on the feet. Hard to take down. If he does get taken down, he seems to be very active, looking for submission threats, getting back to his feet, looking for some ground and pound. He'll throw elbows from his back. So I just see him being a little bit more active in this fight. Going with Marlon Vera. Alexis Davis, Jennifer Maia. I'm going to go with Alexis Davis by decision. Randa Marcos, Angela Hill. I'm going to go with Angela Hill by decision. A little bit more active on the feet. Good movement, elusive. Chris Gutierrez, Ryan McDonald. I'm going with Chris Gutierrez by decision. Eric Shelton versus Jordan Espinoza. I'm going to go with Eric Shelton by decision. That's that. Let's get to a couple fan questions and see what we got going on here for... By the UFC commentator on Twitter, he says, "What's your favorite submission?" I gotta go guillotine, man. I love guillotine chokes. I like setting them up. I like using them for scrambles. I like using them to get up to my feet. Many different ways to use them and many different ways to hit them. And it's just one of my favorite chokes to hit in training and in fights. Who should fight for the vacant 135-pound title? By Ben Slurm, Sinchester on Twitter. It's tough, man. I like Aljamain Sterling. I've trained with him before in the past, and I think he's definitely looked really good after that knockout loss to Marlon Moraes. I think he showed great, response from being finished like that. In his last two fights, has two big victories: one over Jimmy Rivera, and one over Brett Johns. And it would be cool to see a fellow Long Islander get the chance. I just think that the UFC is going to go with Henry Cejudo just because I know, Ali Abdelaziz is his manager. He's Marlon Moraes' manager, so most likely he's going to try to push for those two to fight and secure both of his clients' guys at the top. So I see them going with that fight. And I see them making the Aljamain Sterling versus Pedro Munoz for the number one contender fight. That's what I see happening next. What else do we got? Not that many fan questions. Where the fuck are the boomerangs at, huh? Jeez. Cowboy Cerrone versus Ally Quinta, man. That's going to be fucking fun. That's on the same card I'm fighting, so I can't wait, man. That's a good main event slot. Interesting that, they were supposed to book Cerrone versus McGregor, but that never happened because McGregor didn't want a co-main event spot. Obviously, McGregor's the pay-per-view king, so they're not going to put him on a ESPN Plus card. But I just don't know how they didn't make that fight between Cerrone and McGregor for a pay-per-view main event slot. I know it's not for a title, so they probably didn't want to do that, but who knows? Either way, we got a sick fight. Big opportunity for Ally Quinta, and Cerrone looked really good in his last fight, so that's going to be a scrap right there. Can't wait to see that fight. I don't know. Let me know who you guys got in that fight. If you guys could subscribe, I'd really appreciate that. And, follow me on Instagram, Twitter at BrianBoom135. Thank you guys for the support. And I know it's quick and short. I do these things, pretty quick, sweet, short, smooth. Boom. We'll see you guys next time for the next fight card. And stay frosty, as Luke Thomas would say. Boom.